Wow, a tabletop video. I haven't done one of those in a while, but hopefully you'll get some enjoyment out of this. I have had quite a few requests for this, and I think this might be because I can actually say, as far as I know, I have one of the largest P99 collections of people that I know. I'm not saying I have the world's greatest P99 collection, but I certainly seem, not many people, let's put it this way, not many people are strange enough to have as many P99s that I do, because people typically buy like one or two or three of the pretty much exact same gun over and over again, and I went a little bit more than that, but they all have their own little story, and I enjoy talking about the P99, and I know some people enjoy listening about it. So we're also in a corona lockdown, so why the hell not? I'm going to show you some of my P99 collection here, some guns, some little accoutrements. Let's just basically talk about it and have some fun. So also, there's another reason for this video. I am sick and tired of searching for things on YouTube for the P99 and getting airsoft videos. And trust me, I have nothing against the airsoft guys. I believe I have some airsoft P99s around here as well. I think it's great. I think anything that gets people into the shooting sports and or firearms for whatever reasons is great. That's why I never understood people that are like, oh, you just know about your guns from video games and movies. I think that's great. That's how I got interested in a lot of guns. I think anything that builds the sport is a good thing. But when I'm looking for actual information on the real steel, real life firearms, I tend to want the actual firearms that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go through some of my collection here for the P99 stuff. I actually was going to shoot this yesterday, but I couldn't find this knife, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later when I talk about the odds and ends that I have related to P99 stuff. And it really kind of broke my heart because I went out of my way to get this knife many years ago, and I wanted to shoot a video on it, and I never did, and then I lost the thing. Oh, by the way, in case you're wondering, because I will be showing off my awesome hands, on the left side also goes very well with the P99s and the James Bond theme. I have my Omega Seamaster Planet Ocean. On the right hand, I have a paracord bracelet that I learned how to make, not during this Corona lockdown thing on YouTube, but very close to that time, and so I made one. And also, this is a fun little fact, this is a bracelet that, being a scuba dive master, I like to show people. This shows different colors and how they disappear as you go deeper in the water, so you lose red first, then orange and yellow. Cute little thing I saw in Key Largo. Enough of that, you came for the P99s. So I'm going to clear this off here. First thing I can show you is what they're all sitting on. Move these things, I got guns all over the place. America, am I right? The tech mat here, a lot of people are familiar with the Glock cleaning mats here. As you can see, this one's seen a lot of use, and they kind of inspired this trend. Well, I got one for the P99, obviously the tech mat company, and they are basically like large mouse pads. Mouse pads, remember those crazy things like mouse pads that we used to have? Us 90s kids will remember mouse pads and graduations and going outside. Remember all that stuff we used to have? But this is nice. It absorbs oil, makes it so stuff doesn't slip around. When you're taking apart guns, by the way, fun little aside here, it is nice to have something like this so stuff doesn't slide around and it absorbs the oil. It's also nice to have a small parts tray, because as you can see here in this exploded diagram, lots of little parts can come out of these guns, and it's nice to have a tray like this. This is magnetic on the bottom, so if you put something on there, it will stick to it. So if you tip the tray over, the things won't just go scattering across the room. Anywho, so that's the first thing here in this little collection. I'll get this cleaning mat back out of the way so I can move on to the first. Before I start with the actual collection, why P99? Why P99 over, say, the Glock? Is it just the James Bond thing? No, but I will gladly say James Bond, the whole advertising did work for me. Pierce Brosnan is my favorite James Bond. I know everybody has their own reasons for liking or disliking. I think the world is not enough. Whatever you want to say about Denise Richards and the whole physicist thing, I enjoyed the video or the movie for various different reasons. It's the one that got me interested in James Bond. Pierce Brosnan just has a way about him that I think is just very James Bondish. Oh, it might not be like the novels, and some people think Daniel Craig's more like the novels, and some people are Sean Connery only, and my father's favorite is Roger Moore, but I've always liked Pierce Brosnan. And in Tomorrow Never Dies, he gets the P99. and he carries it in Tomorrow Never Dies. He carries it in The World's Not Enough, Die Another Day, which there's an awesome scene, which hopefully I'll remember to link in the description, of a VR training session where he goes around shooting with the P99. I must have watched that a million times, because I know I just liked this gun for various reasons that I'll get into. But why the P99 over, say, something like the Glock, for example? People say, well, is it just the James Bond thing? Are there any other reasons? There are actually other reasons for it. It's not just specifically, oh, I saw that in the James Bond movie, therefore it must be good. When people say stuff like that, I kind of just laugh it off because everybody's entitled to their opinion, but I'll actually give a reason here. So here I have my Glock 20C. It is actually loaded, but I have emptied the chamber out just for this video. This is my current home defense piece with the Streamlight TLR 1HL on the bottom. So let's take a look at something like this. The one more akin to the P99 would be the Glock 19, but I'm talking more in a general sense here. So why the P99 over something like this? Okay, first of all, let's take one of my many P99s I have around here. We'll take this one. I think this is probably the most fair comparison, which again, this P99 is loaded, but I have emptied the chamber for the video. I'm just going to keep these mags aside so we don't get all confused here. So, first thing up is the grip. Most people, when they pick up the P99 for the first time, when they've only held something like the Glocks here, they say, wow, that really fits my hand well. And the P99 was actually one of the first polymer handguns with interchangeable back straps. Far before Glock in their Gen 4 decided, oh, we need this and that and the other thing in the beaver tail. The P99 was doing it. They've had interchangeable back straps from day one. You can put a larger one on, you can put a smaller one on, but I keep the medium one right on there. And for me, that makes it so I get a melt into your hand sort of feeling, and I can get a wonderful grip on there. For the thumbs forward grip that I shoot with, is very popular with people. This sort of melts into my hand. I like the way my thumb falls in this groove here by the magazine release. Everything works well for me. So the grip, that is a plus for the P99, for me at least, over the Glock. Next thing is the trigger. So if you're not familiar with the P99 trigger, it has what's known as the Aas Trigger, that stands for anti-stress. Basically, it is a double and single action trigger. If you have ever shot a Glock, which some of you probably have, we'll safety check it again. You know it has a consistent 5.5-pound trigger pull. It's your standard Glock trigger. But I think of a Glock like a base. It's your Honda Civic, where this is, I don't know, it's not technically the one that started it all, but it's kind of what people think of as like one of the first polymer handguns for modern times. It's the base that other things have built off of, and the trigger is a very good sign of that. It's the same trigger pull each time. It's consistent, but it is not a great trigger pull. It has quite a bit of take up. It has not a clean break. There's a bit of mush, and there's not a real distinct break. I mean, I don't have any problem shooting it, but compared to, say, the P99 trigger, I do prefer it. So when we look at the P99, it has the anti-stress trigger, so it's double single action. With that, you have the first round is going to be your long double action, just like shooting a any sort of other double action pistol. I was going to say revolver, but revolver would be a poor example because the revolver doesn't have the subsequent shots in single action. So you have the long single action, or it's long double action trigger pull for the first shot. And that, I don't know what the weight on that is. I'd say maybe 9 pounds, 8-9 pounds, somewhere in there. And what that double action pull does is make it so you can reach strike if you have a light strike or something like that. But you have the long double action pull here for the first round. The slide will cycle, and the subsequent rounds will be single action. There's the reset, a little bit of take up, and actually a little bit cleaner of a break than I was expecting there. But here is the wall right here, all the way back. You can see how far back that trigger is. A little bit more pressure. Clean break. Much cleaner, much less mushy trigger than, say, the Glock. Speaking of the trigger, this is another thing that I prefer on the P99. I don't like any safeties on my handguns. Some people prefer safeties out the ass. I don't. That's up to you. That's entirely your own subjective view. I don't like any safeties on my handguns. Most people say Glocks don't have a safety. That's not true. They actually have drop safeties and this and that, but they also have the trigger dingus, the bit here in the middle of the trigger. I don't like that. I wish that it wasn't in the trigger. I'm sure you can get aftermarket, but of course I'm talking about all stock here. I don't like the thing in the middle of the trigger. P99 doesn't have that in the middle of the trigger. Even on the P99 QA, which I'll talk about later because I have one, which is the P99 with the Glock style trigger, as in they're all the same, about 5.5, all trigger pulls are the same, about 5.5 pounds. Even on that, it still doesn't have the dingus. The QA does for some reason. Again, not my choice. I am much happier without the dingus. The Gen 1 P99, which I guess I'll bring it in and talk about it now. The Gen 1 P99 here actually had a little bit of this trigger dingus thing. This is what they did. This is an early enough model that it actually has a split trigger. You see that? You have to grab it in the right manner, otherwise that won't actuate up like that. So if you grab it a little bit high and try to pull the trigger, the back, this lip right here will get stuck on the frame and you won't be able to pull it. I don't like that. I'm glad that only lasted for a very short amount of time in the early production P99s. These are sometimes more desirable because they are earlier. I mean, you can look at the low serial number here, but I don't like that at all. I want no safeties. I don't want a magazine safety. I don't want... The only safeties I want are completely passive, as in drop safeties and stuff like that I'm never going to notice. Some people consider the Glock trigger safety a passive safety. I disagree with that. Because if you grab the side of the trigger, if this is the only bit of the trigger you get and your finger is on the side here, it will not fire. I don't want that. On the P99, you can grab the absolute side of the trigger and it will still go off. I would prefer absolutely no safety, not this ridiculous trigger dingus. So that's another point for the P99 there. Big point for me, and this is a point of contention, the magazine release. So your standard Glock magazine release, I'll take it, I'll put a magazine in. It's this button on the side. This is your bog standard. This is what most pistols, at least in the US, are like nowadays. They have the magazine like this. It is reversible. I think on the Gen 4s you can switch it over to this side. It is button. You press the button, the magazine falls out. That's great, but for me, especially when you have the big 2x4, which this isn't entirely fair because this is bigger than the Glock 19, which is the size of the P99, but when you have a larger grip here, you have to break your grip a little bit. You can't keep your grip. You have to break it to hit the magazine release. They even make extended ones specifically for that issue. The better way to do it would be, which H&K and Walther has used, the paddle magazine release. Let me grab another magazine over here for the P99. So the paddle magazine release. There's bars on either side of the trigger guard here, and depressing them will cause the magazine to release. Now, for some reason that I cannot understand, some people will say, I don't like that Euro-style mag release, I can't hit it with my thumb. I think if you're trying to hit it with your thumb, you're doing it wrong. You may be used to this, but if I stretch, there's no way I'm going to hit that with my thumb. Much like an AR mag release, I hit it with my trigger finger. So you're shooting, you bring your hand down, hit it with your trigger finger, and it falls right out. You can also hit it with your middle finger. So the paddle mag release, which the HK and the Walthers use, and some other companies, I much prefer. I prefer that over the button style release. I think I actually have a video on my channel explaining this. One more thing, why the P99 over the Glocks. The factory sights. I do not like that ball in a cup U type thing there from the Glock. Yes, they can all be replaced aftermarket. I understand this. I'm talking about from the factory. I would much rather have the 3-dot sights of Walther. I think those are a lot better and easier to understand than this ridiculous ball in a cup nonsense. That's just me. I can hit the target with both of them. I much prefer the Walther sights. And lastly, this is for some people not important, and for me pretty much not important as well for the uses, but I much prefer the aesthetics of the P99. I think these lines, the milling on the slide here, especially on the 9mm version, the rounded looks, I prefer the P99 aesthetically, whereas the Glock is the block. You know, they all look the same pretty much, more or less. You know what you're going to get with a Glock. Not that huge of a thing, but whatever, it's just another plus. If you're talking similar reliability, which you are, if you're talking similar price range, why wouldn't you get the one that you prefer the looks of? It just seems idiotic not to. And also with that, while Glock does have some very interesting history for things that he did with the firearms industry, I think Walther has a little bit more interesting history if you especially look at things like World War II, and you look at the P88 and the Luger, or the Walther P38, all those sorts of things. They have some very interesting history to read up on as well, and the history is something that I always like when I buy something. That's, if you ever look at Omega's history, you also will see some pretty interesting things in their past. History is another thing to look into. So that's just a little aside thing, not that important, but that's another reason that I prefer the P99 over the Glock. It's not simply just, hey, James Bond uses it. With that being said, now I'm going to move into the order in which I acquired my P99s and a little bit about each and sort of how I got, or why I got them. So I'm going to move this Gen 2, which was not my first P99, out of the way and talk about my actual first P99. Which is, where is it in all this pile of stuff? It is over here. This was my first P99. This was my first pistol, which is actually a lot more of a bigger deal than you might think if you are unfamiliar with the laws about how you have to get a pistol here in New York. When I was 21, which I think is stupid anyway. I think the age should be 18 if we're going to have an age at all, but whatever. When I was 21, I put in for my pistol permit, which you need in New York to even touch a handgun, and I about a year later, because you have to go through all these processes and these ridiculous background checks, and you have to this and that and the other thing, about a year later, I actually got my permit and I was able to pick this up. I wanted a Gen 1 9mm P99. This is not a Gen 1 9mm P99. If you're unaware how you can quickly tell the difference between a 9mm and a 40 P99, the 40 is on the left, and the 9mm here is on the right. The 9mm has the front of the slide milled out. To cut down on the weight of the slide. It has to do with the speed at which it returns when it's firing, but that's an easy way to tell. You can see the bit milled off here on the front on the 9mm. I think that looks far better than this just straight line here, but that's an easy way to tell between the two. Okay. So this was my first P99 here in New York, first pistol in New York. I wanted a 9mm. Unfortunately, a little hard to come by. And why a little hard to come by? Well, first of all, because I wanted the Gen 1. I wanted the Gen 1 aesthetics. I wanted the Gen 1 for a few reasons. That's the James Bond gun. And it's hard to come by in New York because if you do find one, if you do find even a P99 for sale, this was at a time that Walther was threatening to get rid of the P99 like they always do. They always say that. There's always that rumor going out that they're going to discontinue it. They might come with 15-round magazines, and those are very verboten here in New York. You have to get something with 10-round magazines. So I happened to find this on a gun broker at the time for a price that worked for me with 10-round magazines, so I had to go with the 40 with the hopes that I would get a 9mm in the future. As we can see, that did work out. So let's take a look at this. Let's safety check it. So this was my first pistol in New York and my first P99. It has the gimped magazines here because we are still living in the People's Republic of New York, and these 10-round magazines keep us far safer than the 12-round magazines that the 40 version here normally comes with. Right. So what was the deal with this gun? What experiences did I have? I had the wonderful pleasure of taking this out to the range. I finally got a pistol in the state. They finally granted me a pistol. I was so happy. I went to the range. I had my handgun. I felt like a BAMF and a half. And I went and I got up the firing line, put my target at about 21 feet or so, aimed down those sights, those 3-dot sights that I like more than the Glock, fired the first round, and I was left with that. I was left with 9 rounds in the magazine and the slide locking back. It had jammed, quote unquote, on the first round that I ever shot with it. Boy, I was disappointed. Well, I didn't know why it had jammed. I was just like, damn, that's the way to start out. But smooth seas never made a great sailor, am I right? Why did it jam? Well, the reason is because this gun was designed for the 9mm cartridge, and when they decided to convert it to the 40 cartridge, they didn't notice certain things until after they had went into production, and one of them was that the slide on the 40 will lock back prematurely because it is the 40 round using the mags that it originally came with. I'll show you the new mags right now. So this is the 40 mag that has the issue corrected. If you'll notice here by the slide stop on this, or by the follower here, this magazine on the left here has this bit punched in here that holds the rounds more in a straight line. This doesn't, so the rounds can sort of shake back and forth. And what will happen is, I don't know if you'll be able to see this in this video, but if you see up there at the front of the slide, there's a little spring that looks like it has a loop in it. What will happen is, if that bit is not punched out here, the rounds can get a little askew in the magazine, and they can hit that and cause the slide to prematurely lock. That is what will happen with some of these early Gen 1 40s. So I noticed that I actually learned that I can reload rounds. I noticed that if you set the COLAL, the cartridge overall length, a little bit shorter, for whatever reason, the rounds that I reload don't cause the slide to lock back prematurely on my own hand loads. So that's been one way I've been able to alleviate that issue. In addition to, just get new mags. Just a little side note that I noticed, my reloads don't cause it to do that. But if you do get one of these early Gen 140s, you're going to want to make sure you have the mag with this indent there. But this was my first P99, like I said, so it was obviously my first carry pistol, because no matter what anyone tells you, every concealed carry, or every, before somebody complains about this, I'm going to see if I can phrase this correctly. If you have a pistol permit in New York State and it's not specifically a premise permit, or it's not specifically a for employment, every pistol permit in New York State is a concealed carry permit. Now, what they might have is administrative restrictions on there. Those administrative restrictions do not have the force of law. I've had this conversation with people many, many times, and some counties don't have them all together. But anyway, I had my concealed carry permit at the time, because it was, all in one with this. And so this was the first pistol that I carried. And what did I carry it in? Well, first of all, I would carry it outside the waistband in a cheap, let's take a look here, just a cheap Phobos paddle holster where I could put a winter coat over it. And obviously it's dusty, it has not seen use in a while. But one problem with this holster is, you'll see that it is cut for the 9mm. It does work for the 40, but it is a little bit of a tight fit. So it does work for the 40, just a bit of a tight fit. You really got to push it in there. And the problem isn't pushing it in, it's getting it out without taking the whole holster out of your pants with it. In fact, I have to do this off camera here. And there we go. Look, I made the front of the slide nice and dusty. Take my gun rag and wipe that off. With that, like I said, I wanted the 9mm. I ended up having to get the 40. Not a total loss, though. Why? Because the 40 got me set up, because I bought 40 ammo for this, and I would buy it in bulk and such. It got me set up for later in life, getting things like the 10mm. Now, it's not what got me interested in 10mm. That was actually Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, the novel. I read about it. But 40, if you're unaware, 40 and 10mm are basically the same. 40 is the shortened version of the 10mm. Obviously, it's a lot more pressure, so 10mm is basically the 40 Magnum. But if you're reloading, they use the same projectiles. And you can get things like 40 conversion barrels for your 10mm, say, Glock. And you can get a bunch of different conversion barrels. I do like the 40 as a platform. I don't particularly like it as, say, a carry caliber. I'd prefer 9mm, but I do like the 10mm as, like I say, as a platform. The 10mm and 40 as a platform. So that did get me into the realm of actually having a 40 to start with. But I obviously was not happy, because you get your mind set on things and you know what you want. So not too long after this, I'd say about a year after I got the 40, I finally happened to find on Gunbroker what I was actually looking for. And actually, this worked out to be pretty much exactly what I could hope for, and that is what you saw a little bit earlier. The 9mm Gen 1, and I will safety check this. And this is basically exactly what I was hoping for. This is the quintessential James Bond gun, but I also wanted the 9mm because 9mm is a bit cheaper to shoot, less recoil. This is the round that the gun was designed for, so you tend to have less reliability issues with this. And this is a very early version, which is kind of what I was going for. I wanted this more almost kind of like for collecting purposes, because at the time I had already bought a Glock 26 for carrying. In the interim between when I bought that 40, I bought something a little bit smaller about the Glock 26, so this was a bit more for my collection. And this is a very nice early example. It has the split trigger. It has the engraved serial number in the slide. And obviously the roll marked slide, or the actual engraving roll marked instead of laser etched. It has the Interarms stamp there. This is even before they had any dealings with Smith & Wesson, excuse me. The import mark on the 40 is also, it's not Interarms, but Alexandria, VA, so slight name change. But this was the one that I wanted, so I got this on Gunbroker, and I was very happy with finding this. So this was my second P99, and then I moved on. So now I had this, and so now basically I had a 40 Gen 1, and then I went and bought a Glock 26 for actual carry, because the holster options are a little bit more available, and the parts availability, it was, and the magazine availability was a little bit better for the Glock 26. I figured I was going to be shooting it quite a bit, getting more proficient in carrying, so I bought the Glock 26 in the interim, then I bought this. But then I'm thinking, why don't I look for making the P99 a carry size? And I had already become used to carrying a 2-finger grip gun, i.e. the Glock 26. So I'm like, well, I know Walther makes that, so why don't I get one of these in their compact version in 9mm, and then that'll be the same. And then the exact same thing that happened when I originally got the P99 happened when I got the, what you'll see next, P99 Compact. So, sorry about whacking the camera there, but here is the 40 P99 Compact. Again, I wanted the 9mm, but they didn't have them available at the time, so I bought this 40 version instead. Ignore this color fill there. I was showing somebody the difference between color filling the letters with nail polish and this here being the crayon. It doesn't look that great, but that's why I use the nail polish when I do the color filling. So I'll do a safety check here. And at this time, after I got this, I tried it out with some of the holsters that I had for the Glock 26 that were kind of ambiguous enough that they would fit both of them. And for various reasons, I think because I just had practiced with it so much and I had become used to the Glock 26 at the time, I ended up not using this as a carry gun. But I figured, you know, I'm getting quite the collection now, so I might as well just pick up P99s because I guess I'm trying to collect them. And it's nice to always have all these different options, right? But, again, I wanted the 9mm version of this. I ended up getting the 40. Until I got the 9mm version of it. Because, I mean, you're not going to have a full-size 40 and a full-size 9 and then a compact 40 and no compact 9, so again, mostly for collection purposes. Also thought about carrying this as well, because then I'd have a 9mm just like the Glock 26 size in the Walther. But again, for various reasons, I think because just more practice with the Glock 26, I kept with that, and I don't have any particular problems with the Glock 26. I do prefer the trigger on this, but the Glock 26 has been serving me just fine, and I kind of have a system. I have a nice DeSantis cozy partner that I really has broken in nice, so I carry the Glock 26. When I do carry that size of firearm, I, again, didn't carry this, so this kind of went more for the collection. But now, I was in quite the dilemma. I had these two Gen 2 P99s, but only in compact. And I had the Gen 1s in the full size, so that wasn't going to work. So, well, we know where we moved from there. We moved to the, boy, now I'm even confused over here. We moved to the Gen 2 full-size P99. in 9mm. I don't actually have a Gen 2 40. I'm sure I'll probably be coerced into buying one day because I wanted a Gen 2. I'm, quite the fanboy, and I figured, I might as well get the full size now. And I actually use this for carry when I'm doing well, I won't mention it next. When I'm not doing an inside the waistband, but for more winter months when I have a little bit more space on me, I'll show you. Or like, say, if we have a nationwide pandemic or something like that, and everybody's starting to freak out, then I will carry the full size. It doesn't really matter between the full size and the compact for capacity-wise when you're in the People's Republic of New York, but this does give you the full 3-finger grip as opposed to the 2-finger grip and a little bit longer barrel and such. So I had the Gen 2 P99 here. If you've never seen the comparison between the Gen 1 and the Gen 2, should give you a pretty close comparison here. You can see obviously the jimping here. The serrations in the slide are much larger on the second one. The trigger, or the magazine release, is much larger on the second gen. The lines here where the angled portion of the slide and the flat portion of the slide meet, there's a cutout here. It's actually grooved in. Here it's not. I prefer the looks of the Gen 1 more, but I prefer things like the slide release in the Gen 2. So there's that. So now I had the full-size 9mm Gen 2 here. Get a look at that. And this is when Walther wasn't dealing with Smith & Wesson anymore in the U.S., so they actually have Walther Arms, Fort Smith, Arkansas there. And then this last one, I would say that I'm ashamed of, but I'm not, because this is actually how it happened. Is a bit of a funny story. With this gun, I decided that I wanted to have, I have different methods of carry. For example, because I am a scuba diver, sometimes I need things that will fit in just swim shorts. Sometimes I generally like to carry inside the waistband. That's where the Glock 26 comes in. And when things, I don't know, go to hell a little bit more, or if it's the winter time, I like to have the full size, and I've always wanted a shoulder holster for this. I've always liked the look of the shoulder holster, again, from a James Bond type thing, but I also think it's more comfortable if you, say, have a long car ride. It's more comfortable if you're going to be walking around all day to just sling it over your shoulder and have, instead of just having something in your waistband all the time. I typically carry at 4 o'clock, and after a while you notice it there. It might also be a big fat fuck too, but that sort of thing. I've wanted a shoulder holster for a while, but it takes a bit to find a nice quality one, because I wanted a nice leather one. So that was what my search for was after this. And I actually searched Gunbroker looking specifically for a shoulder holster. And what to my wandering eyes did appear but, well, let me show you. Reach over here. A Galco Miami Classic shoulder holster. And you're not seeing double. Yes. So, this was one of those situations, literally, where it's like, oh, honey, I want this fishing pole, but if I buy the fishing pole, they're going to throw in the fishing boat free. This was the that kind of situation with the holster. So I found this nice Galco Miami Classic, which looked perfect, and somebody just happened to be selling it with the gun. Now, these Galco Miami Classic holsters are very nice holsters, and they are exactly, I wanted a shoulder holster that holds the gun parallel with the side of my body, not pointing down. I've never liked that look. Oh, but that points the gun at the people all behind you. Yeah, I'm not particularly worried about that way. My hand's not going to be anywhere near the trigger when it is pointed in that direction. Oh, except maybe on the draw. Again, I'm not particularly concerned. This is the pretty much exact shoulder holster that I wear. Actually, it reminds me of Leon Kennedy's holder in Resident Evil 4. And it was perfect. And one of these shoulder holsters actually go for about $200 just for the shoulder holster with the two mag holster on the other side. So I carry this with the gun under my right side and these two mags on the left side. Well, for a little bit more than that, they had one with the gun. So I'm like, all right, well, let's make that a package deal. So this is a different one, though. This isn't just a Gen 2 AS like you saw before. This is the only P99 I own that is QA. So let me check this to see if it's loaded. Of course, it is not. Safety check. All right. So this is the P99 QA. It looks pretty similar to the Gen 2 Aas that I just showed you, which in this big menagerie is over here. But you'll notice the decocking button is absent. It has a small takedown button there. And the reason for that is this is the Aas Trigger. So it has the double action and the single action like I showed off earlier. This has, on the other hand, the QA trigger. So what that means is that it has the Glock style trigger where every trigger pull is the same. Pull the trigger, about 5.5 pounds. With that, it means you don't get a double strike though, just like with the Glock, you don't get a double strike. The slide needs to be racked before you can fire again. If you like the Glock style trigger but wanted a P99, there is always this option, the P99 QA. They also have a DAO, which is the double action only, which is the double action from the Aas, but every single trigger pull. Why you would be a masochist and do that? Who am I to judge? You know all the crazy shit that I do, but why would you ever want to be a masochist and do that? I don't know, but again, I'm not here to judge. So this is a bit of the best of both worlds if you're used to something like a Glock trigger pull. You have the consistent trigger pull, and you have all the other benefits of the P99. This button does not decock the striker like it does in the Aas. Let me show you that real quick here. So again, this is the double single action trigger pull. Rack the slide. Shows the striker cock, so now it's in single action. Actually, it's in anti-stress mode here, because, here, let me explain this a little bit more. So the first pull of the trigger is going to be, let's of course check to make sure it's safe again. The first pull of the trigger is going to be double action. If you rack the slide, it will be single action now. But if you rack the slide or pull the slide back a little bit without it fully racking and not pulling the trigger, now you're what's in anti-stress mode. So this gives you the length of the double action trigger, but the weight of the single action trigger. So you have this trigger pull here where it's all the way forward like double action, but it has the light weight of the single action. Then you take up all that double action length and you have the single action trigger pull. Pull it back there to a nice break, a little bit more, no creep, and there we are. So when you have the gun cocked either in single action or anti-stress mode like this, you'll see the striker protruding out the back here. You can press the decocking lever and that will put it back into full double action mode. With the QA model here, which obviously doesn't have two different types of triggers, all this does is disengage the striker. This would be akin to pulling the trigger on a Glock when you have to take it down. Now, you can do just the same. You can pull the trigger when you want to take it down, but I guess that's a little bit more safe. By the way, I didn't mention this in my Why P99 video, but if we look here, let me get my Glock back in here. The takedown lever, and this is actually the extended one that I have installed in this Glock, are these little tabs if you want to take down the Glock. Let's, again, make sure it's safe here. If you want to take down a Glock, you have to pull the trigger, pull the slide back a little bit, and pull down on these tabs, and the slide will come off the front, just like that. But if you don't want to pull down on little tabs like that, which again, that's already the extended one, the P99 has a much better takedown lever, where you do the same thing as the Glock, but you have this whole block here. You pull the slide back a little bit, pull it down, and it'll come right off the front. I like having this entire block here to pull down instead of the little tabs. That's just another little plus. So this button here makes it so you don't have to pull the trigger to take it down. Is that safer? That's up for you to decide. I don't think pulling the trigger on a firearm that you've personally checked is just unloaded is any more dangerous. I've been playing with all these guns around here and I've not had an accident yet because, again, I am actually mindful of what I am doing. It is entirely possible to ignore some of the firearm rules, like treat every gun like it's loaded, because that's a stupid rule anyway. The actual full text of that rule is treat every gun as it's loaded, unless you personally just verified that it is not, because there are times when you might have to do things like look down the barrel. Oh, terrifying, I know. People get a little bit crazy with that stuff, so is it safer having this instead of having to pull the trigger? In my opinion, no, but it's an option for you. So anyway, that is the most current P99 I have, and it was one of those situations where hey, buy the holster and we'll toss in the gun. Buy the fishing pole and we'll toss in the fishing boat. So I'm going to clear this off and I will be right back. Okay, a few more small things in my P99 collection here that I'd like to show before we can wrap this up. This is a longer video, but I don't know, when I was a P99 fan without one, I kind of liked anything to do with the P99, hearing about the history, the different types and stuff. So hopefully if you have stayed this long and you're stuck in from the corona, what are you going to do anyway? Hopefully I've provided you with some entertainment. A couple more things before I go here. Here's a few other things I have that have something to do with the P99. So I have a Zippo here that has Tomorrow Never Dies on it with the P99 on there. A little bit of artistic license used here, but it is in fact the P99. You can see it there. It's my P99, the Zippo that I have with the P99. And they actually made a Walther Zippo. I don't know if it was a P99 Zippo or just a Walther Zippo that I wanted that came in this nice wooden display case. I missed out on that because it was like $300 though. I have a Walther pin here. 130 years, 1886 to 2016, built for life. That's not specific to a P99, but I have that little pin here. Specific to a P99 is my Walther P99 pin. Nice little thing, nice Gen 1 P99 on there. And I have this P99 knife, which, if you search for a P99 knife or a Walther knife, you typically find something like this nowadays, which I was given this as a Christmas present. It's awesome, but it is not the one that I wanted when I was looking for a P99 knife. I bought that many years before I got this, but you'll typically find something like this where it'll say Walther, or it'll have P99 on the blade or something like that. You'll have a black tactical looking knife like this that'll say P99 on it. This one, on the other hand, though, is, if you are familiar with a Spyderco, you know it has those laser etched holes in it. Well, this has a laser etched P99 in it. Now that is cool. That is friggin' cool. And look at the details here. Look at the trigger guard. It actually has the little trigger hump in there that you can see right here, the ski hump. The reason for that, by the way, and I don't know why they did this, but the reason is so the tip of the trigger, let's of course make sure it's safe, the tip of the trigger maintains a constant distance between the trigger guard. I believe that they said the reason for that was it's less hard for like gloves to get pinched in that space there. Like if this was just all flat, you could have the fabric from gloves get pinched in there. I don't know, but I like the look of that ski hump. But it's just interesting that that is even modeled on this little laser cutout. It says P99 Walther, made in Italy. It's got a little serial number there, 440C steel. And yeah, that's one of the prides of my P99 collection there. I really do enjoy that. Just your basic FRN handle knife, the rest of it, but laser etched P99 knife. Now, what else do I want to add to the collection that I still want to add to the P99 collection? Simple things like I would like an OD green P99. I've always enjoyed the look of those. The crown jewel, the absolute, I would want it more than anything in my collection, is a 9mm Gen 1 titanium coated, the ones that say titanium coated, not the QPQ one, which is just a silver slide, the one that actually says titanium coated, the one where the coating wears off bad. It's going to be a safe queen, trust me, but a titanium coated P99, the one that's in Modern Warfare 2, or Modern Warfare 3, one of those, the actual titanium coated P99. Love the look of that. That is a holy grail dream gun that I really want. Another holy grail that I didn't know was a holy grail until I saw it on a gunbroker option that I lost for $5. Not that the gun cost $5, but I missed out on winning it because of $5. Ugh, that drove me mad. I'll try to put a picture of it in there, in this video, like somewhere around here. Was a year 2000 commemorative P99. It came with a wooden box. It came with a VHS. Who remembers those? Of the history of Walther, and a certificate of authenticity in a nice wooden box. And it was like a steal. It was like $565, and my max bid was like $560. Oh, that pissed me off so much. But you know, you can't win them all. There's one on Gunbroker now for an outrageous price, and it's the 40 version for like $2,000. No, I don't want any of that. Oh yeah, and one other thing. People think I have a little bit of a P99 fascination because of my collections here. I actually, this used to be the back of my truck. I've since sold that vehicle, but yeah, little bit of a fanboy here. I thought you might enjoy that. I hope this video has brought you some enjoyment here as we're stuck in this coronavirus pandemic. And I hope this provides more search results to YouTube that aren't airsoft. So I've got some real steel stuff out there. So those are my 6 P99s that I have as of right now, which is April 6th, 2020, in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic. We'll see if it grows. Hopefully it will. I do have a little fascination with these P99s. So thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe out there.